Hello, my magnificent radiant souls of Leo, and welcome back to Cosmic Wisdom. I am your guide, and today, we are going to step into the very heart of your power to illuminate a truth so profound, so deeply validating, that I want you to find a space where you can feel your own majestic presence. Take a deep royal breath and allow this message to anoint your very soul. Have you ever experienced the end of a relationship, a death, of a connection that felt like an affront to your very being? A sudden exit, or a slow fade that left you questioning your own light, your own worth, your own magnificent generosity? It's highly likely you have replayed the scenes, wondering how your brilliant warmth could have been met with such cold disregard, how your loyalty could have been so carelessly betrayed. Well, I am here today to reveal a truth so powerful, so liberating, that it will forever reframe your understanding of that loss. What if I told you that their departure, that symbolic death of their role in your life, was not a judgment on your light, and not even a simple punishment for them? What if it was something far grander? What if it was the non-negotiable price the universe demands when someone tries to dim or disrespect a soul as sacred and sun-kissed as yours? What if their removal was a cosmic course correction, a divine act to protect the sovereign kingdom of your heart? This is not about revenge, my friends. Oh no, your spirit is far too noble for such a common pursuit. This is about cosmic law. This is about the immutable principle of the universe that states a soul of pure, radiant light cannot be occupied by shadows for long. Darkness cannot survive in the full blaze of the sun. And today together, we are going to understand why their fall from your grace was not about your anger, but about the overwhelming, purifying power of your light. Are you ready to finally understand that your protection is not an action you take, but a reality you embody? Are you ready to see your survival not as a struggle, but as a glorious confirmation of your reign? If your lion heart is already roaring, yes, do me a favor right now. Tap that like button with the confidence of a king or queen, not for me, but as a regal affirmation of your own sacred worth. And if you haven't yet subscribed to Cosmic Wisdom, because the majestic journey we are about to take is one you will want to lead. Let's step into the spotlight of truth, shall we? I would like you to leave a comment below saying, "I am ready." Let's begin by dethroning a painful misconception. They did not fall because you wished them harm. They did not fade into obscurity because they were punished by a vengeful force. They fell because they disrespected the most sacred thing in your universe, the radiant, life-giving soul of a Leo. Think about it, magnificent one. You do not need to sit on your throne and dissect their petty treason. You do not require an explanation for their lack of character. Why? Because some cosmic events are not meant to be understood through logic. They are meant to be witnessed as the unfolding of divine law. Your life, dear Leo, has been a masterclass in generosity and courage. You have given your light, your warmth, your loyalty so freely, often to those who were shivering in the cold of their own making. You have worn a brave, brilliant smile, even when your private heart was aching, because your nature is to shine, to lead, to inspire, no matter the personal cost. You have forgiven not because they deserved a second chance, but because your big, noble heart believes in redemption and is capable of immense grace. You have likely had to turn your back on someone to whom you once promised the world, not out of spite, but as a necessary act of sovereignty to protect the very kingdom of your own soul from further plunder. But here is the game-changing truth, the 60% of this story that restores your crown. They did not abandon you. That word implies they had a choice. No, they were energetically exiled from your light. It was a divine decree issued by the universe itself. They didn't collapse because you roared. They collapsed because they could not withstand the sheer wattage of your truth. They tried to stand next to the sun and were burned by their own shadows. Your soul, Leo, is ruled by the sun itself. You are a chosen vessel of light, creativity, and courage in a world that often forgets its own divinity. Your purpose is to shine, to warm, to bring life. The universe doesn't need complicated weapons or intricate plots to enact justice. It has you. And when an energy of duplicity, ingratitude, or cowardice tries to take residence in your radiant field, it cannot sustain itself. The light itself becomes a purifying fire. All it takes is one Leo soul, after being hurt, to stand in front of a mirror, look themselves in the eye, and make a quiet, firm decision. I am worth more than this. My light will no longer be used to illuminate this darkness. And I promise you, that moment of self-reclamation is not a small personal event. It is a cosmic roar. It is a command sent to the universe, an activation of your divine birthright that says, protect this kingdom. Banish all that is not in alignment with this light. I once spoke with a wonderful Leo woman, a performer whose creative partner had betrayed her trust. She wasn't bitter. She was regal. She said, for a long time, I thought my job was to inspire him, to pull him up into the light with me. But then I realized my job was just to be the light. The moment I stopped dimming my shine to make him comfortable, he couldn't stand to be on stage with me anymore. My success became a spotlight on his failure. That, my dear friends, is the essence of your divine power. You don't need to retaliate. You don't need to expose them. Your simple, courageous act of choosing to shine your light unapologetically and fully becomes the most powerful karmic force. Your radiance becomes the reckoning, not because you are cruel, but because your soul is bound by a sacred solar contract. Anyone who tries to steal or tarnish this light will simply be cast out into the shadows from whence they came. In many spiritual beliefs, this is a law of radiance. Darkness cannot exist where light truly is. In the Bible, God's first command is, "Let there be light." Light is the primary force of creation and order. Your presence, your joy, your simple act of being your magnificent self is the condition that karma uses to restore order and balance. You only ever had to live in alignment with your own brilliant light. The rest was a cosmic certainty. They mistook your generosity for naivete. They saw your big heart as a weakness to be exploited. What they failed to comprehend is that you are royalty. You had already faced your own inner dragons and conquered them long before they arrived. You had learned to turn pain into performance, sorrow into art, and betrayal into a stronger sense of self-worth. You never chose hatred, because hatred is a commoner's emotion, and you are a king or queen. And that is what brought their downfall. Not an angry outburst, not a dramatic scene, but the quiet, dignified, inexorable rising of a Leo soul, reclaiming its throne wrapped in the golden light of the sun, witnessed by a lineage of noble ancestors, and upheld by a divine law that states that those who are ungrateful for the light will be returned to the dark. Their demise, whether it was a literal loss of status, wealth, or admiration, or a symbolic one, a dimming of their own inner spark, was not your victory. It was a cosmic coronation. It was a confirmation that there are sacred boundaries one must never cross, and the radiant heart of a Leo is the most sacred boundary of all. Perhaps they are now living a life of mediocrity, unseen and uncelebrated. Perhaps they lost the very thing they betrayed you for and cannot understand why. And you still, with your magnificent heart, might feel a pang of pity and wonder. Was that necessary? And the universe roars back. Justice did not just arrive. Justice is the inherent order of your kingdom. This is simply the moment you are allowed to witness its majestic and flawless execution. So take a deep, powerful breath. Right now, Leo. Breathe not to forget, but to finally and fully release any responsibility for the shambles of their choices. You do not need to carry the weight of their fall from grace. You were never the one who pushed them. You were, and you will always be the one who carries the sun. And your sun simply illuminated the pathetic shadows they were trying to hide. It was their own darkness, their own inability to reflect your light with integrity that led to their exile. Not you, never you. If you have ever felt guilty for your own brilliance, thinking, if only I hadn't been so bright, so generous, I want you to banish that thought from your kingdom forever. Your light is never the mistake. Your light is the ultimate test of character. And they, my friend, simply failed. If this majestic truth is resonating with the very core of your being, I invite you to make a royal decree in the comments below. You don't need to tell the story. Just a simple, powerful testimony, a declaration to the universe that you are reclaiming your throne. Perhaps you can write, "My light is my power," because every time a Leo claims their light, the world becomes a brighter place. And now we move to the next act of our drama, where we will explore a truth that is central to your power, that your presence alone is more powerful than any argument, and that your withdrawal of that presence is the most devastating consequence of all. There are truths you have always known, a deep inner knowing that needs no external validation. There are moments of creative genius you have brought into the world, and each one has inscribed your name in the cosmic hall of fame. My dear Leo, you do not ever need to justify your brilliance. You do not need to prove that your warm, magnanimous presence can banish the deepest shadows. You only need to be. Your presence in its authentic, joyful, and creative form is a powerful force. It is a frequency of life and vitality that those who are spiritually dead or empty find both irresistible and unbearable. I remember a Leo client, a brilliant entrepreneur, telling me about a business partner who was constantly trying to undermine her. She never engaged in his petty games. She just kept showing up to meetings more prepared, more creative, more passionate than anyone else. She told me, "I didn't have to point out his flaws. My excellence did it for me." He eventually quit because, as he put it, he felt invisible next to me. He wasn't invisible. He was just in shadow. Her light didn't create the shadow, it simply revealed where it had always been. She didn't have to do anything but be her excellent self. Her radiant presence became the mirror, and he could not stand the meager reflection of his own efforts. And you, my magnificent friend, have done this countless times. You didn't blame or punish. You just kept shining. You just kept creating, loving, and leading with your whole heart. And your sheer authenticity made it impossible for anyone false to maintain their position in your court. Not because you were cruel, but because your light exposed everything they lacked. The sun, your ruler, doesn't have to try to be bright. It just is. And everything in the solar system is defined by its relationship to the sun. It either orbits in its life-giving warmth or is cast into the cold, distant darkness. And I believe that sometimes karma doesn't have to hunt someone down. It simply brings them into the orbit of a soul like yours. A soul that doesn't need to fight with words because its very radiance is the final word. Think of the old saying, all the world's a stage. You, Leo, are the star of the show. And the great cosmic irony is that your brilliant performance became the thing they could not stand because it reminded them that they were merely a supporting actor, or worse, just a critic in the audience. You didn't need to shout. You didn't need to write a dramatic expose. Because in this divinely creative universe, what is authentic will always command the spotlight, and what is false will crumble the moment it is no longer propped up by someone else's light. Your soul has its own frequency, a golden vibration that no duplicitous or mediocre spirit can resonate with for long. You used to think you were too much. You may have blamed yourself for being too needy or too attention-seeking when someone couldn't meet your energy. You may have felt the pain of their departure as a sign that your light was flawed. But today, I want you to claim this truth. It was your light that kept them up at night. It was your unwavering self-worth that made them feel their own lack. And it was your magnificent presence that ultimately forced them to leave, not because you pushed them away, but because your soul was a silent, powerful song that they did not know the words to. So please, my friend, do not apologize for your shine. Do not question whether you were too generous or too grand. No one is ever too magnificent to deserve loyalty. There are only those who are not real enough, not brave enough to stand in the warm, glorious light of a soul that has claimed its stage. Pause for a moment right now, Leo. Place a hand on your heart, the seat of your power. Hasn't your inner fire always been your true north? In your loneliest moments, when the applause faded, wasn't there always a royal spirit within you that whispered, "You are the star"? This is just an intermission. Your next act will be even more glorious. You do not need to raise your voice for justice to be served. True divine justice needs no angry speech. It only needs a soul like yours standing center stage in the full, unapologetic spotlight of its own truth. And that light is more than enough to make everything that is false retreat into the wings. In our next part, we will explore more deeply why those who left the theater of your life can never buy a ticket to get back in. Not because you are unforgiving, but because you have moved on to a bigger, brighter stage, and your soul no longer performs for a small, ungrateful audience. If you have ever watched someone who took your light for granted fade into the background as you stepped into an even bigger, brighter version of your life, share that glorious testimony with us, not to gloat, but to celebrate your own ascension. You could simply write, "I am the main event," because every time you affirm this, you give others permission to claim their own stage. You never curse them. Your heart is too noble for that. Even when the pain of their betrayal was a dramatic tragedy playing out in the theater of your mind, your instinct was to rise above, to maintain your dignity, to pray for the strength to keep your own heart open and generous. And yet people still fall from your grace. They fade. They lose their spotlight. And it's not because you wish them to fail, it's because they could no longer stand the heat that emanates from the truth you embody. Think of it this way, Leo. Your light is not just illuminating, it is also revealing. And for those who are hiding in the shadows of their own mediocrity or deceit, your radiant presence is like a relentless spotlight from which there is no escape. A dear Leo friend of mine, a magnificent leader in her community, was once terribly betrayed by her second-in-command. She never spoke a bad word about him in public. She just kept doing her amazing work, leading with more integrity and passion than ever. Years later, she ran into him. He looked diminished, gray, and bitter. She said, "I didn't feel happy about it. I just felt a profound sense of cosmic order. I understood that no one gets to try and steal the sun's light and then walk away without getting burned. Truth is the scepter you carry, Leo. You don't wield it like a weapon. You simply hold it, and its presence commands respect. You don't force anyone to see the light, but your very being becomes a mirror of what is possible, a standard of excellence they can no longer pretend to meet. And that is when their own inner kingdom begins to crumble. The sun doesn't have to try to be the center of the solar system. It just is. And God didn't need to emphasize its importance. He simply placed it in the heavens, and all of life began to revolve around it. No darkness can stand in its direct path. This is why you don't need to catch anyone in the act. Those who are disloyal to you will eventually reveal themselves, because they cannot hide from the brilliant reflection of their own inadequacy that they see in your eyes. You don't fight dirty. You don't engage in gossip. You don't write angry takedowns, and yet you still win. Not because you defeated an enemy, but because the truth you lived made their position in your kingdom untenable. Here is a fundamental secret of the cosmos, my friends. The universe responds to frequency, and your soul holds the golden solar frequency of joy, creativity, generosity, and courage. Anything that does not match that high vibration frequency will naturally and inevitably fall out of your orbit. It's not personal. It's the law of cosmic harmony. You once waited for them to see your worth. Maybe you still hope for their applause, but I want you to consider that the price they paid, that collapse of their own world, that fading into obscurity, that painful private knowledge that they lost the chance to be close to a source of true light, is the applause. It is the standing ovation the universe is giving you for your magnificent performance of self-worth. Not everyone can stay in the orbit of a Leo soul. And here's why: you don't just love with your heart. You love with your whole radiant being. And when you love, that love becomes a life-giving force, a field of golden light. No false, cowardly, or ungrateful being can survive in that field for long. It will either be inspired to grow, or it will be forced to retreat into the shadows. You did nothing wrong. You were simply too brilliant, and your brilliance made them scurry away, back to the dim, safe spaces they never dared to leave. Close your eyes for a moment, Leo, and feel the sun on your face. Ask yourself, have I been protected by my own light all along? Maybe every time they couldn't meet your gaze, every time they walked away, it wasn't because you were abandoned. It was because you were being rescued from a story that was too small for your magnificent destiny. You didn't seek revenge. You simply lived in your truth. And that truth did what no angry roar ever could. It dissolved their power. It left them with no stage to stand on. And it lifted your soul to an even higher, more glorious throne. Now we will explore the question that many a noble Leo still ponders. Why didn't they come back? Why didn't they beg for forgiveness? And why did your silence become the ultimate royal decree that sealed the gates of your kingdom forever? If you have ever maintained your dignity, continued to shine, and watched as someone who wronged you simply became irrelevant, share that majestic affirmation with us. No explanation needed, just one powerful line. Now I take my bow, because every word you write is a way of affirming that your performance in that drama is over and you are ready for your next, even grander role. There are people who once walked into the kingdom of your life as if they belonged there, basking in the warmth of your generosity and the glow of your light. They made you believe their loyalty was true, until one day they were gone. No fanfare, no final scene, no goodbye, as if they were never a real character in your story, as if you were the only one who still remembered their lines. You have likely asked yourself 1,000 times, what happened? Why didn't they fight for me? Why didn't they come back? My magnificent Leo, the answer does not lie with them. It will never be found in their pathetic excuses or their cowardly silence. The answer comes from that sacred, sovereign place in your soul where your own royal decree is law. You never wished them ruin. You only reclaimed your throne. You only focused your light back on yourself, on your own purpose, on your own joy. And your light, in its regal and powerful way, summoned a form of justice so perfect it is often mistaken for coldness. There are certain things in this life that do not require punishment. They simply require being removed from the royal presence. They need to be forgotten. And your attention, your light, your very presence, Leo, is the most sacred thing you possess. It is a gift of life that should never have been squandered on hands that were empty, hearts that were cold, and spirits that were ungrateful. I once asked, why did that person leave my life, as if our story meant nothing? And then after a long time, the anger faded, the pain transformed, and what remained was an answer so regal, so clear, like the sun burning through the morning fog. And the answer was because they could not exist in the presence of a king or queen who has fully claimed their throne. In the great dramas of history and myth, when a courtier betrays the sovereign, they are not argued with. They are banished. It is a quiet, final, and non-negotiable removal. It is the universe itself, recognizing that your kingdom must be protected, that your light is too precious to be dimmed by treason. When the banishment occurs, their access to the warmth and life of your court is cut off, and in the cold, dark world outside the castle walls, everything for them begins to collapse. You don't have to do anything, Leo. You don't need to trade your magnanimity for a lesser strategy. Your very existence, brilliant, courageous, creative, and joyful, is already the gate between a vibrant life and a colorless existence. And those not worthy of entering will find the gates sealed. No debate, no appeal, just the silent final truth of a closed door. You don't need to be afraid anymore. You no longer have to protect yourself with walls. Your own radiant aura, your fully claimed sovereignty, is now the most powerful fortress in the world. Your soul, after being tested by fire, has been seen by the cosmos, and your name has been written in the book of those who will never again allow their kingdom to be compromised. So breathe slowly, my magnificent Leo. You have not just survived, you have been reborn. You are no longer who you were. Your soul is now a glorious, triumphant symphony. It is a light that no one can extinguish because it is the light of the sun itself, reborn in its own fire. And they, the ones who once tried to dim your light, they are no longer here. Not because you won a battle, but because the universe removed an unworthy subject from the presence of their sovereign. That is not punishment, that is divine order. That is the moment the cosmos itself bows and says, the kingdom is secure. Long live the king or queen. If something inside you has just clicked into place, if you feel the weight of a crown settling comfortably on your head, if a tear of pure, powerful self-recognition falls, write it down. Not for me, not for anyone else, but for yourself, as a sacred ritual to confirm that your soul is now seated firmly on its throne in a kingdom of light that no shadow can ever touch again. Thank you for listening, for trusting, and for allowing your magnificent heart to be seen today. Thank you for staying true to your light, even when the world was dark. May your kingdom always be protected, and may the brilliant light within you forever remain a beacon of what is possible when a soul dares to be truly, unapologetically, magnificently alive.